Hello everyone, and let's begin with the Aeneid, Book 3, Summary and Explanation. So this book's all about sea travels and prophecy. So Book 2 ended with Aeneas concluding his narration of the sack of Troy. Now Aeneas will narrate what happened after he and his companions set out from Troy in search of their destiny. So the Aeneadae, or the followers of Aeneas, know that they are fated to essentially re-found Troy in a new land. However, they do not know where this new land is. So they're kind of blind going into this. So they arrive in Thrace, and they begin to settle down. But as Aeneas is preparing for a sacrifice, he receives a terrible omen. He attempts to uproot a plant, but he uproots 3 plants, and they all ooze blood. Then the ghostly voice of Polydorus, another Trojan prince, tells Aeneas that he was murdered as a guest to the king of Thrace in that very spot. Now this omen compels the Aeneadae to hold a funeral for Polydorus, and then they depart. Now we should discuss Xenia. Xenia is a concept that we must understand in our careful reading of ancient texts like the Iliad or the Odyssey and the Aeneid. So Xenia was the ancient concept of hospitality, but the meaning extends beyond simple hospitality. Xenia was ritualized. It encompassed rules for the guest and the host to follow. Zeus was often even called Zeus Xenios, as Zeus acted as a protector of Xenia. It was that important to the ancients. So travel in the ancient world was dangerous. So following the customs of good Xenia would ensure the safety of travelers. Hosts were expected to receive foreign guests hospitably, often regardless of who they were. The host was expected to take care of his or her guests' immediate physical needs, such as food, rest, and maybe even a bath. But in exchange, the guest was expected to respect their host in the highest degree. There was often an exchange of gifts between the host and guests, too. So let's see, can you think of some good examples of good Xenia and bad Xenia from the Trojan epic cycle? Well, to name a few, we have the Xenia that Helen and Paris and Menelaus all exchanged. So Paris was a guest in the house of the king Menelaus, but Paris, instead of respecting his host and the rules of his host's house, took Menelaus' wife Helen and fled with her. It was a total slap in the face to Xenia. It was seen as terrible, terrible thing for a guest to do to his host. We have another example in the form of Polydorus, who we just looked at. Polydorus was a guest of the king of Thrace, and the king of Thrace cut him down, murdered him. Very bad Xenia. That's another example. And we also have some from the Odyssey as well. Well, several from the Odyssey, several good instances and bad instances. So if you've read the Odyssey, the Phaeacians receive Odysseus with good Xenia, and Nestor and Menelaus both receive Telemachus with good Xenia. They treat him kindly, give him rest, food, his needs, and they treat each other with respect. So Xenia was very important. It is especially important to Book 3 of the Aeneid, because Aeneas is traveling to all these different lands and receiving different kinds of Xenia. And this happens too whenever he goes to Carthage. And also, Xenia can be a sign of whether people are civilized or not. If a kingdom gives you bad Xenia, then it's considered that they're not very civilized. So let's get back into the story. So after Thrace, there's another wrong turn. The Aeneadae go to Delos in order to ask the oracle where they were meant to settle their new kingdom. Apollo's oracle gives them an ambiguous prophecy which Anchises, Aeneas' father, misinterprets. So they trust the interpretation of Anchises, and the Aeneadae go to Crete and begin to settle the land. However, plague strikes the settlers. Then the Penates, or the household gods of Troy, appear to Aeneas in a dream and tell him clearly where he must settle his people and found his new city, in Italy. Now after this, the Aeneadae begin sailing again, but they now find themselves at the Stophades Islands, the home of the Harpies. The Aeneadae kill livestock on the island and prepare to eat, but as they're just about to eat, the Harpies swoop down and steal away their food, And the Harpies leave this terrible stench when they steal food. So even if there's any food left, you can't eat it because it just smells horrible. So then the leader of the Harpies, Celaeno, speaks out and gives Aeneas a new prophecy. Before Aeneas can settle in Italy, starvation will drive the Trojans to eat their very tables. Now this sounds a little scary. They're going to be so starving and so crazy that they're going to eat tables? It doesn't make much sense, but it will make sense as we get to the point where they are eating their tables. And here's what the Harpies look like. Harpies were basically bird women, and they were scary, they were dirty, smelly, and they would swoop down from the sky at rapid speed and steal things away. So now the Trojans sail onwards. After the Harpies, the Trojans stop at Actium, where they enjoy some games, like wrestling. Then they arrive at Buthrotum after that, where Helenus, a Trojan prince, rules with Andromache. The Aeneadae are given good Xenia, and Aeneas requests that Helenus give him a prophecy. And in this prophecy, Helenus tells Aeneas what he is able to say about their future travels, and gives him advice on where to go and where to avoid. Now Helenus is pretty important, since he was another Trojan prince who left Troy, escaped, and now he's ruling a kingdom. And in his kingdom, Buthrotum, it's actually a little bit like Troy. It's kind of like a little Troy. Aeneas sees it, and he and his men are just in awe. They're so amazed. They see a little version of the main citadel of Troy and all these things that just remind them of Troy. And they're thinking, wow, won't it be great whenever we get to settle a new Troy too? And it's important to note Andromache here. Andromache was the wife of Hector, and here she appears and she has a better life. She's with another Trojan prince, so one of her own kind, and she's no longer the slave of Pyrrhus. So Helenus gives this prophecy because Helenus is a seer, and it's really helpful to Aeneas because he gives a lot of good advice, and Aeneas is ready to set on his way again. Next they go to the island of the Cyclops. So Aeneas and his followers leave Buthrotum and sail towards Italy. They now furiously row to escape Charybdis and avoid Scylla. Then they reach the island of the Cyclops. So Charybdis and Scylla were some monsters that, in particular, Odysseus had to face, and other heroes as well. Whenever Odysseus had to go through Charybdis and Scylla, Odysseus ended up losing 6 of his men. Scylla the monster ate 6 of Odysseus' men. So the way that Charybdis and Scylla works, Charybdis is a personified female whirlpool monster, and Scylla is a sort of crab-like monster with several heads that swoops down from a craggy rock and eats sailors that sail by. And these are near each other, so it's really hard to avoid it, because if you get too close to the whirlpool, you get sucked in, but if you get too close to Scylla, then you get 6 of your men, at least, eaten by Scylla. But Aeneas is able to just have his men furiously row to escape either of these fates. And on the island of the Cyclops, they find a lone man there, distressed and dirty. He tells them that he, Achaemenides, was left behind by Odysseus. He warns Aeneas of the 100 deadly Cyclops on the island who have no respect for Xenia. The Aeneadae take Achaemenides on board and narrowly escape a Cyclops who wandered into the shallows. And down here we have a picture of Odysseus blinding the Cyclops Polyphemus from the Odyssey. Achaemenides also recounts this story to Aeneas and just tells him of how terrible, uncivilized the Cyclops are, must be avoided at all costs, do not come ashore. So this is very helpful to Aeneas. And also we can see here Virgil is kind of telling us about the leadership of Odysseus versus Aeneas, because Odysseus lost 6 men to Scylla, but Aeneas didn't lose any to Scylla or Charybdis. And then Odysseus, several of his men died in the cave of the Cyclops, and Odysseus sailed away in such haste that he left behind this guy, Achaemenides, just to probably die if it weren't for Aeneas and his companions. So Virgil's kind of poking some fun at, look at how bad Aeneas did, and or look at how bad Odysseus did in these trials. Isn't Aeneas doing great? And at the end of book 3, Anchises dies. In Sicily, Anchises dies. Aeneas is upset and mournful, and here he ends his narration, and we return to the present storyline of Aeneas in Carthage with Queen Dido. And in book 4, we will see a lot more about Dido.